Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. My name's Andrew Sumner, and today I'm joined by the one, the only, the mighty Laura Dodd, the head book buyer of Forbidden Planet, where it is our mutual pleasure to be joined by the one and only Amy McCaw. How are you, Amy?
I'm really good, thank you. So excited to be talking to you with the Forbidden Planet sign in the background. It all feels quite surreal, but
yeah, no, this is my home wallpaper, sponsored by Nick Landor, the owner of Forbidden Planet. And Amy, you are, of course, have we just been discussing? You're an old-time fan of the store and a customer of ours. Always lovely to speak to a customer who's also a fine creator.
Yeah, I think you've actually got a lot to do with the book I've written, Forbidden Planet, because it is just a mashup of all of the things that I love crammed into one 1990s setted package. Yeah, I think that it was Buffy, I mentioned to you just before we started the interview, Buffy that drew me to Forbidden Planet. I wanted to find somewhere that I could buy merchandise, and I think on one of my first visits I found the spectacular library, which you can see, and has lived on my bookshelf ever since. And yeah, I think Forbidden Planet is just a wonderful place for getting into new things, for like really reveling in the things you already love, and I think a lot of that made its way into the book.
Oh, that is wonderful to hear, and Laura is massively excited about Mina and the Undead. So I know you're champing at the bit to get into the questions, Laura. So over to you, mate.
Yeah, so what can you tell us without too many spoilers about Mina and the Undead?
Yeah, there are a lot of spoilers if I go too far. So Mina is a 17-year-old girl who's become quite estranged from her sister, who went to live in New Orleans for university, and Mina doesn't really know why she left. So she goes for the yearly Fang Festival, and she's excited by all of the things New Orleans has to offer, as we would be. She goes to graveyards, she finds spooky bars, and she's having a great time when she gets a job in a murder mystery mansion. And she gets to scare tourists, she's reconnecting with her sister. And it's all going great until she finds a dead body at work. And they very quickly realise that somebody is killing people in the style of New Orleans myths. Mina has to figure out what's happening, whether vampires might be involved, before she becomes the next victim.
Oh, incredible.
Thank you. I'm so pleased you get it. It's one of those things that, because it's so niche, I think I worried that people would just think that it's this thing inside my head that doesn't make sense outside. But the reaction's been really amazing so far. It's been great.
Oh no, I think you're kind of mainlining vampire lore and pop culture in equal doses. You know, it's the kind of synopsis that we love, right, Laura?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's something about the American South being a very good setting for horror.
It is. I think that there's lots of places to get rid of bodies, like, you know, the Mississippi and the swamps. So that was always in the back of my mind for the vampire characters. But yeah, and the mythology is so ingrained that people talk about these things as if they happened. And I talked to somebody, a tour guide, who was saying that she knows people who've seen some of the, you know, vampire characters from her book, or they've seen things moving in the doors, in the windows of the Ursuline convent. And I just love that it's become part of real life. Like, people say that they've sat on the trolleys with a ghost, and that's just, you know, taken for granted. Whereas if I said that in Doncaster in Yorkshire, I'm not sure that people would have the same reaction.
Possibly not.
although funnily enough, Yorkshire does also have a fine vampire history, right?
Yeah, we do. Not the part of Yorkshire I'm from, but that also really
much further north.
Yeah, we're more about horse racing and markets where I'm from. That didn't really make it into the book. But yeah, so I went to Whitby some years ago, and I just absolutely loved that. The moment where you drive up and you see that abbey sort of spectre over the top of the cliff. And I'd read Dracula so many times already, so my main character had to be called Mina. I'm really glad that we decided to put it in the title, a la Buffy. Putting your female lead in your title, and I really wanted to bring that in. So Mina coming from Whitby and being named after that character, and having that hanging over her, that why she was named that, without giving too much away, I thought was a really interesting way into the story for her.
Definitely. And the book has a really kind of 90s, I'm going to say retro, because it's kind of considered retro now.
It's historical fiction. That's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just like the prime of my life is now retro anyway. Yeah. But there's a real kind of 90s flair to it, which is really, really like enjoyable to read. So you had to kind of set it in that time period.
When I started writing it, it wasn't quite working when I went to New Orleans in 2012. It was a modern story, and the horror movie mansion was always there, but I couldn't figure it out, so I left it for a few years. And then it occurred to me that I'd maybe got the time period wrong, and as I started researching, 1994 was the deadliest year in New Orleans history, so over 400 people were murdered then, which I just thought was horrible and brilliant for a story at the same time. And then Into the Vampire, the movie, came out that same year, and I just thought, what would the aftermath of that be? So people in New Orleans, a lot of locals told me that they despised Interview with the Vampire when it came out because it brought so many vampire-obsessed tourists who were trying to find a real vampire. And I just wanted to set it at that really specific time in history where it was a really violent place to be, and then how would that tie in with this vampire culture, some of which was really touristy, but there was always this really dark subculture of people who were seeking out vampires to feed on them. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I get that.
That's a more interesting kind of claim to fame. I used to work at Notting Hill Waterstones, and we always used to have people looking for the film set of Notting Hill. Does Hugh Grant live locally, etc.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer have vampires nearby.
Also, the vampire axis of West London, right, Laura? Do you know what I mean? Unbeknownst to all these people looking for Hugh Grant, you know, they'd come and looking for Hugh Grant, and then they'd just disappear. All back in Laura's lair.
Well, it was in the back of my mind. My mum went to college in Bingley, and so the Yorkshire Ripper was active at the time that my mum was a university student who, was one of the people. Ultimately, it got him caught because he targeted a university student, and I think the police really came down then that she was this figure who the press were really interested in. So I think my mum had always told me that story, and I'd found it like really scary what it'd be like to live through that. And there were things like when she had to go straight to and from college, and they didn't know where he was. So my granddad was really worried about her. So I think all of that, as I start talking about it, a lot of my experiences and the places I've been have just woven their way in.
Wow, Amy, I'm getting horrifying flashbacks during this conversation. I'll tell you why. Not only is the concept of having to even watch Notting Hill again scary enough, but my best friend at college is called Linda Watson's from Yorkshire, right? And she was obsessed with the Yorkshire Ripper case,
really,
and used to listen to the recordings that he'd dropped into the police, I'm not sure turned out to be him. I think it might have been, somebody posing as him. But she used to literally regularly in her college room, play those recordings back to me. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this stuff. Please get this out of my mind. So yeah, this is an awful set of flashbacks coming out of the brilliance of your book.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, mate. It's all good. Now, Laura was telling me that there's even some Mina Etsy jewelry at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. And behind me, I don't know if you can see it, but somebody's done some fan art. The beginning of the book starts where Mina is a little girl who bites somebody on the playground because they told her vampires weren't real, so she bites him. And I put my first page online, and somebody was inspired by it. So she wrote a poem about tiny bitey Mina and did some fan art. And I just love that. So a girl who I know, Zoe, online, she made these amazing fang bracelets. I wish I had one, but I've sort of given them away to family members and stuff at the minute. But yeah, I think genre fiction is amazing. That it can just, for all that genre fiction, I get really angry when it gets a bad rep with people and think that it can't be deep and meaningful and rip your heart out. Like some fiction can. I just think that it can really inspire people. And to read my first page and for an illustrator to sit and illustrate my character, I just thought was incredible. I hope to see more of it because it's a really amazing feeling.
Yeah. It must be so wonderful. I think when you've created anything, to see your creations given flesh, given life in 3 dimensions, just must be such an amazing feeling.
It is, and I think a lot of people have said to me that they can see it. It's quite cinematic, and it obviously has so many movie references that they could see it on TV or in a film. And I think that would just be, for all the getting a book published is was been my number one ambition. I think seeing it on screen would just be amazing as well.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now moving on to the next question. Talking of movies, so top 3 vampires. So you can pick movies, books, games as well. I know Spike is probably up there for you, but
he might be
possibly
from the sort of 10 action figures behind me.
there is a clue in your diorama behind it.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a little bit, and the fact that I've met James Masters maybe 10 times, but we won't go into that too far.
Brilliant.
He's brilliant. But yeah, so Spike is my number one. And I think from a character development point of view, I can't think of any character that's gone through such an interesting journey. That he started as a two-dimensional villain who was going to be killed off at the end of season 2. And he was such a fan favourite that he went on this incredible journey. And I think the fact that Joss Whedon had to figure out how to break down this villain and create him into somebody that could like last the distance and go from love interest to comedy character to, you know, everything in between. So yeah, I've always loved Spike. And I think I tend to go for these ambiguous vampires. I don't like the ones that are really completely evil and inhuman. I find hard. I enjoy those things, but I don't think I become as obsessed as the ones that are interesting. Like Damon in the Vampire Diaries would be my next pick for that reason, because I think he becomes this sort of really compelling, lovely character at points, and you almost forget that he's evil, and then he turns around and snaps somebody's neck, and it's sort of almost comedic in its timing. And I just love that you don't know, he's walking along this knife edge of humanity, and I like the fact of seeing where they'll fall off. And similarly, I think Eric from True Blood, from the books and the TV show, is a favourite. I love how, I think the first scene he's in True Blood, he's sitting on a throne and he kills somebody and ends up drenched in blood and is more upset that his hair has got blood in it than anything else. And I like the fact, I just love that he seems like this superficial character, and then when you dig back, he's got this incredible history that spanned hundreds, if not thousands of years, if I'm remembering it right. And I think that vampires are interesting for that reason. The longevity is something that you can just unpick their character development forever, and I really like that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I'm still like obsessed with one day opening a bar called Fantasia.
Yes, yeah. I mean, somebody said to me that is Empire of the Dead the bar from my book real? I was like, I wish it is. I'd love to walk into the Empire of the Dead bar. Maybe not some of the things that happen there, but you know, in principle,
yes,
I'd like to be there.
Yeah. Now, I'm really appreciating this bar-owning vampire spiral that we're going into now, and that's kind of racing us towards our conclusion. So, Laura, what final question do you have for Amy?
Yes, yeah. So you're obviously a bit of a collector, as I suppose we all are in this particular interview. You have an amazing signed books collection. So, what is the number one pride of your collection?
That's a really hard question. So to explain my signed book collection, the glass case behind me on that side and the glass case behind me on that side are 2 books deep in signed books. So there are quite a few there. I think 3/4 of them came from Forbidden Planet probably. So thanks for that. But I think the ones that I got signed in real life were really special. So Laini Taylor's one of my favourite authors. Meeting her was... She's so inspiring, so intelligent, creative, everything. So her books are really special. The Beach is a random one. I don't know whether either of you are a fan of that, but I read that at a really impressionable age. When I was a teenager. I probably didn't understand half of it the first time I read it. But I managed to track down a signed first edition of that some years ago. So that's pretty cool. And I have some signed Anne Rice books, which sadly I didn't get signed in person. But I think one of them may have even come from Forbidden Planet quite a few years ago. And yeah, so to know that I've got a signed book that she held in her hands behind me is pretty great.
That would be wonderful. A great feeling. And she did do stuff for us back in the day. That's true. And we had Laini on the show recently, actually, didn't we?
I saw the interview. It was amazing.
Yes, so she's so wonderful. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining myself and Laura here today to talk about Mina and the Undead, which you can order from the links attached to this video. And thanks so much for carving out the time to speak to us about your wonderful book and about 2 subjects we love, you know, New Orleans and vampires. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, when I saw that this was on the list of interviews I was going to do, I don't want to show favouritism, but I might have done a little squeal. And I'm not a squealing person, so that was quite a moment.
Well, you've got to come back and join us again with your next book, mate.
Yeah, I would love to. And I'd love to actually come into the shop and do a signing. I think that would be another awesome experience. So thank you.
And we would love you to do that. And that will definitely happen, whether it's this year, whether it's next year. We'll get it done whenever it's convenient for you.
Oh, thanks so much.
And with the other side of this pandemic, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, it's lovely to see you, mate. Lovely to meet you.
You too.
So I'm Andrew Sumner. This is the mighty Laura Dodd. And this is the spectacularly talented Amy McCaw talking about Mina and the Undead, which you can pre-order here, and the world of vampires and the world of New Orleans, and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff. Take care, everyone.